What makes this report most interesting is that it argues how global climate policy with different prices can be rational and optimal. On page 18, it reads, there are two interlinked reasons why low-income countries may choose lower carbon prices than high-income countries. One, low-income countries tend to have less ambitious objectives for emission reductions, and two, low-income countries tend to require a lower carbon price to achieve a given level of emission reductions. This in contrast to much of the literature that argues for a single price, underlining the idea that for climate change it does not matter where the greenhouse gases are emitted, and the differing prices would introduce unfair competitive disadvantages in places that are taxed more heavily with subsequent carbon leakage. However, Stiglitz and Stern argue that taking into consideration who pays for the emission reductions can lead to their different conclusion. The authors elaborate when and where trade-offs between development and emission reductions exist, the imperative of development and poverty reduction may justify slower and more moderate emission reductions over the short term. A similar amount of emission reductions in low-income countries may have a higher economic and welfare cost than in higher income countries on page 19. And even if low income and higher income countries aim for similar emission reductions in relative terms, such reductions may be achieved with lower carbon prices in low income countries. This is in part linked to the availability of cheaper emission reduction options and the higher price elasticity of emissions in low income countries. A given carbon price translated to local currency based on market exchange rates will also be equivalent to a higher local price in poorer countries, since the purchasing power parity exchange rates are usually higher than the market exchange rates. The report underlined that climate change policy and poverty reduction can often be achieved simultaneously. Quoting from page 39, data from developing countries also suggests that taking $100 away from fossil fuel subsidies and redistributing that money equally among the population would on average transfer $13 to the bottom quintile and take $23 away from the top quintile. See figure 5. The report describes the idea that a tax on carbon will generate revenues that can be recycled to other ends, or that a government could reduce other distortionary taxes, say on labor, creating what is known in the literature by the double dividend hypothesis. This way, climate change policy may spur economic development compatible with sustainability rather than the wishful thinking that growth could serve climate change policy. This lecture, we have reviewed the environmental Kuznets hypothesis and Jevons paradox. We have seen that several pollutants seem to display an environmental Kuznets path, but also heard that a competing pollution haven hypothesis could yield largely the same pattern, and that the environmental Kuznets curve does a poor job in distinguishing impact of growth from supposed associated benefits such as technological development. Next, Jevons argued that technological advance alone will do little to reduce emissions in the aggregate. Instead, we need policy. As Stiglitz Stern et al. Encouragingly put on page 18, well-designed climate policies are compatible with development and poverty reduction, and recent technology development and policy instruments create some opportunity for low-income countries to benefit from low or zero carbon technologies and leapfrog fossil fuel technologies. I'll leave you with the references, and I have included a clip from a channel from Amsterdam, Not Just Bikes, afterwards on yet another paradox, the Down-Thomson paradox, that is also known by the Pigou-Knight-Downs paradox. I hope you have enjoyed today's lecture, and I look forward to see you in class.